Jiminy Crickets.
I'm the guy they call Little Mickey Mouse. Got a sweetie down in the chicken house. Neither fat nor skinny, she's the horse's. Winnie is my little Minnie Mouse. When it's feeding time for the animals, and they howl and growl like the cannibals, I just turn my heel to the hen house deal, and you'll hear me sing this song. I have listened to the cuckoo his cuckoo, and I've heard the rooster's cock-a-doodle-doo. With the cows and the chickens, they all sound like the dickens when I hear my little Minnie.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another mini episode. For those who don't know, these are unedited episodes, and we've had a lot of people request that we go back to doing the news. In fact, just today, somebody in our Facebook group said how much they love our show, but they miss us doing the news. Did you see that post, Ruth?
I did. Thanks for posting that.
So
just in time.
Right. So we're gonna do a few of these mini episodes just talking about current events in Disney. And it's been so long since we've talked about current events on our show that we had to break it up into 3 shows. So this time we're going to talk about Disneyland news, and in future mini episodes coming soon, we'll be talking about Walt Disney World news, and then in another one, we'll be talking about movie news. So that's how much has been going on in Disney-dom lately. And for a change, I took a bit of a back seat in as far as kind of coordinating and getting the show organized and ready, and Ruth took over. She decided all the news topics that we're going to discuss today. She compiled a list, and she's sort of in charge of the whole show, of the pace of the show. So I'm going to hand the reins over to Ruth. Take it over, Ruthie.
Thank you. Well, we haven't talked a lot about the news, so we definitely wanted to get into it. And we're going to focus on Disneyland today, like Chris said. And the first topic that we wanted to talk about is the Disneyland After Dark event series that Disneyland has been doing starting the beginning of the year, 2018. And Chris has some things that he wanted to say, so I'm going to pass it back to Chris, but just for this topic.
Yeah, well, the thing is that we weren't going to discuss this because Ruth felt that it's something that's already come and gone, but I had something kind of neat that I found out about today that I wanted to share regarding the most recent of these events, the Star Wars After Dark event. For those who don't know, they on May 3rd, and on May 9th, they held a special after-hours, special ticketed event themed to Star Wars. You had access to all the attractions in the park, but also going on were a bunch of performing type events and activities and music and things, all themed to Star Wars. Lots of meet and greet opportunities and things like that. So the music that was played, they didn't have any live performances. In the first of these events, it was a throwback night, and it was a lot of live entertainers, and it was all like old music from the old days of Disneyland, like, a big band and a Polynesian group and things like that. But this time, because of the theme, I mean, you could do like the Cantina band, I guess, as live entertainment, but that might be a little difficult to get set up. There's a lot involved in doing something like that. It would have been cool if they did, but anyway, so they basically, the only like musical stuff they had going on throughout the park was a live DJ. And the live DJ is someone that I've spoken with before. His name is DJ Elliott. And he does a lot of these type events for Disney parks. He does, New Year's Eve, Halloween. There was a Monsters ink event that he did, a few of them that he's done. And he's a really, really nice person. He has a website. Anyway, I have several of his live mixes. You know, when I say mixes, I mean like pop music. What do you call that? Like techno. Techno's the word. Like techno mixes of different pop songs and things. And I have several of those on my website. And the reason I've been in contact with him is because before I posted them on my site, I wanted to get his blessing. So I emailed him and I asked him if it was okay, and he gave me his blessing. So there's, I think, currently 3 of his mixes. One of them's actually almost 4 hours long on my website. So if you're into techno music, you should check those out. But, so a friend of mine today was looking for audio to represent the recent Star Wars night, because he and I like to stay current with the audio goings on at Disneyland. Me because of my website, him because he also collects all this music as well. And so we've kind of been back and forth discussing what music was used at the recent Star Wars event. And he sent me over to DJ Elliot's SoundCloud page, and DJ Elliot actually posted a little introduction that he had put together that he played at the beginning of his set when the evening just began. And the very beginning of it included a little piece from the 1962 episode of Disneyland After Dark. The introduction from the TV episode, from the Wonderful World of Color. Well, it turns out he actually used my edit of it.
Oh, cool.
So it was, just about 30 seconds of audio, maybe a little more. And he reconfigured it a little bit from what I originally did, but I could definitely tell it was my edit of it based on something interesting. They often had at the beginning of these Wonderful World of Color episodes, when they started the episode, they would say, Kodak presents Disneyland After Dark, or RCA TV presents like they would name the sponsor during the title. So a lot of these episodes that you'll see on DVD or on YouTube, that little beginning part of it is chopped off. So the title will start abruptly because they're cutting off RCA presents, and then you just Disneyland After Dark. So you kind of notice that there's something a little off with the music. It doesn't start at the right spot, and it sounds a little choppy. So I went in and I did some editing magic, and I corrected this using music from a different source that sounded similar. And the reason I know that he used my version is because that's what he used. He didn't use the choppy version. He used the version I invented, basically. So the other thing I found out is not only did they play that at the Tomorrowland Terrace, but when he was DJing, it was put through the speakers around the entire park. So
wow, that's awesome.
My little edit played over the PA system of the entire Disneyland during this event. So that's my little, I don't know. That just kind of made me feel good to find that out.
Oh yeah, definitely. That is awesome. So exciting.
And I confirmed it too, because not only did I hear it on the SoundCloud posting that DJ Elliot made, but I also found a video that someone posted on YouTube that you could hear it during the video, the same
cool.
audio. So it definitely was used during the event. So I was a little beside myself today when I found that out.
That's awesome. You were there and you didn't even know it.
I know. So anyway, the event was basically the DJ, and then they had the special fireworks with Star Wars music, kind of like what they do at MGM, or I'm sorry, Disney Hollywood Studio in Florida. Sort of the same idea, but for the first time ever, they did it for Sleeping Beauty's castle, which is nice. And then they had projections on the buildings along Main Street while you were hearing DJ Elliot's music. And then they also had like a huge variation of the whole training academy thing, but they did it in front of Small World, and they had tons of kids learning how to use their lightsabers. That was a whole event. And then they had the March of the First Order. What's the name of the leader?
Captain Phasma.
Captain Phasma and the March of the First Order, and that was all happening. I think it happened multiple times on the balcony of the old Carousel Theater building. And then they brought back Hyperspace Mountain, the Star Wars themed Space Mountain, for the event. So it sounds like it was a lot of fun, but I did want to mention one other thing about these events. I really feel like they're overpriced, and it also puts a burden on the day guests when they're paying a high premium, over $100 for the most part, for a daytime ticket, and then they're asked to leave early. I know that they've always done these after-hours things throughout the beginning of Disneyland, where the day guests were required to leave early. But we're talking about days when they had ticket books, and the ticket books never expired. And so they could come back to Disneyland with their ticket books and use them at a later date and only have to pay to get in, which was a very small amount compared to the tickets themselves. You didn't have to buy a new ticket book to get into the park. And then the other thing is the after hours events were not outrageous as far as their price point. I feel like Disney is really taking advantage of the fans of these different things. Like they're bleeding them dry, basically. Like, people who are Star Wars fans feel like they have to go to something like this. They're being charged $100 for this. I mean, maybe it's worth it to them, but I just feel like Disney is taking advantage. That's just how I feel about it. I talked to a friend of mine also, and he was the one who kind of planted that idea in my head in the first place. It was kind of his idea, and thinking about what he told me, I kind of agree with him. So I don't want to take credit for the idea. It was planted by somebody else, but how do you feel about that, Ruth? Do you agree that they overcharge, and then it's kind of when you have to pay so much for a day ticket to be required to leave the park early, it's really not acceptable. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I can see where you're coming from. But the thing about this is, I mean, they do this same thing for like the Halloween things that they do and the Christmas parties and stuff. So it's not just like this Disneyland After Dark thing or Star Wars.
Yeah, but I feel the same way about those events also.
About all of those things.
I mean, like, Christmas used to just be you bought a daytime ticket and it was included all the Christmas activities. I mean, it still does in California.
Right.
But in Walt Disney World, you have to pay extra to see the Christmas parade or the Christmas shows and all that.
Right.
I mean, up until the 90s, that was just part of what you expected to see when you paid for your admission. It just came with it. Right. Now you have to pay extra. I mean, they didn't do the Halloween parties until they started doing them as separated events. There was never a time when they just had Halloween, activities like that. That wasn't an extra ticketed thing. But I still feel like, I don't know, maybe have it at California Adventure and not Disneyland, or I don't know.
Yeah. Keep
California Adventure open late.
Mm-hmm.
So that
they could definitely do that. I mean, so that people can go over there. Maybe give them like a park hopper. If people have to leave early, give them a park hopper to go over to DCA.
Right. If they didn't buy a hopper, give them one. Make a special exception when they have those events.
Right. They're leaving at what, around 6 o'clock maybe? Or maybe it's a little bit later. Maybe like 8, a little bit later.
I think it was a little bit later for this particular event.
But, they're leaving around, let's just say 8. There's a couple more hours where DCA could be open and you could make some money, so let them go over to DCA. So what if you give them a park hopper?
Yeah.
I think that would be a good consolation. And then people won't go away being like, man, I paid all this money for this ticket and now I have to leave.
Yeah.
So, I think I would accept that.
And I feel like, I guess they have to charge what they do, because otherwise, as it is, they had to add an extra night to the Star Wars event because it was sold out and there was such high demand. They had to add an extra.
Yeah.
So, if they lowered the price, they'd have even more of a problem.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I guess it's supply and demand.
For that particular one, it's the whole Star Wars thing. You know, the fans out there, they'll pay whatever. Like if Disney was charging $1,000, those tickets would still sell out.
Yeah, they would, but people would have expected a lot more than what they did. What they did was acceptable. And I didn't mention it, they had tons of meet and greets all over the park, and they were all themed, and they added all sorts of backdrops, and they had a whole Ewok forest thing, and they really went all out with the photo opportunities. But still, if you had to pay more than $100, people would probably want to see that canteen band somewhere.
Right. Yeah. I think they can. Yeah. If they did more than $100, they could throw that cantina band in there.
Right.
So.
So that was what I wanted to say about those events. So back to you, Ruth.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to be announcing more, but I haven't heard anything beyond the Star Wars ones.
But when they did the throwback night, they didn't announce anything else for a while. So.
Right.
I have a feeling they'll add more. Probably they're trying to do it when it's not peak season,
Mm-hmm.
Which is basically never anymore. It's always peak season.
Right, I know. So, but I'm sure when they do announce it, we'll talk about it. So, alrighty. So the first news story that we want to get into is, so we all know that Pirates of the Caribbean is closed at Disneyland right now because they are updating the auction scene. But when they reopen it June 8th, they are going to be offering Fast Pass and Max Pass for this ride. And we just wanted to talk a little bit about that and what we think. I personally think that that's a good thing because I've seen pictures recently outside of Pirates before it closed, obviously, and the line is just in the walkway. And, they built that archway to keep people, from being mixed up and, having a hodgepodge of people. But at this point, it's not helping anymore. There's still lines going into Adventureland and things like that. And it's just crazy. And I think Fast Pass and Max Pass definitely needs to be added to this attraction. What do you think, Chris?
Well, having just experienced Fast Pass for the first time, I don't necessarily agree that that's the right solution. I think that's going to make things worse. Because when I was waiting in line for things and I didn't have a Fast Pass, the lines were a lot longer. So if the line is too long now, it's just going to get longer if you have Fast Pass, don't you think? Maybe it won't take up as much room, but it'll be double in the wait time. So the only problem you're alleviating is the line taking up too much real estate. You're not making it better for the guest experience overall, because now you have to wait 3 times as long to get onto the ride. So you're standing in a long line that never moves now. At least the line moved very fast for Pirates.
Right.
And I think the solution should be to have the I feel like if the lines are that long for Pirates, something is going on as far as the loading. Mm-hmm. I think that the capacity of Pirates of the Caribbean, I think if those lines are getting that long, there's something wrong. They don't have enough people on staff. They're not loading the boats quickly enough. They're not running enough boats, because that's an option. They can run all the boats or half the boats, depending on, how well staffed they are at the time. There's lots of other factors other than attendance that can make that line really long, because I remember in the 90s, Pirates was a walk-on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was never... every boat was filled to capacity.
Right.
But you just you basically walk right up to the front door, and you maybe had to wait just where the big pirate flag scene is, where the boats float by. Mm-hmm. Maybe 5-10 minutes tops.
Yeah.
You just walk right on that. But they were always running people through that. And it's because it's such an efficient attraction. And I'm talking about in the middle of summer, it was a walk-on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because the park wasn't crowded. It was because it's just such an efficient attraction. But in order to be efficient, you have to staff it correctly. And I really feel like Disney has been cutting corners as far as staffing goes.
Yeah.
And I think it's become a problem. Not only are they paying their staff minimum wage, they're not hiring enough people, they're not giving them benefits. They're giving these people part-time instead of full-time so that they don't have to give them benefits. They're acting like a big, cold, mean corporation, and that's not something you want to hear about Disney. It shouldn't be a factory. These cast members shouldn't be treated like factory workers, like in a sweatshop. And I feel like they're being treated that way. And I don't know. I feel like if that line is getting that long, there's something wrong operationally. I don't think it has anything to do with attendance, because the attendance has been the same for the past 10 years. It hasn't increased all that much. It's been crazy for the past 10 years. But why all of a sudden is the Pirates line getting out of hand? So rather than hire more people, they're adding in this Fast Pass as a solution, because their thinking is not about the guests, but about what's the most efficient way and the cheapest way we can make this line quick, not as long, and not take up as much space, without thinking about the satisfaction of the guests waiting in line. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I feel it's kind of also partially like they're trying to push those Fast Passes and the Max Pass too, because the Max Pass, it gets them extra money. So they want to add it to all the attractions. They added, when they first introduced Max Pass, they added that to Matterhorn. Yeah. Matterhorn never had a Fast Pass.
I know.
So, and now it's on Max Pass. So the fact that they did that, that's a huge incentive for somebody to want to pay $10 a day. And also the fact that it's only $10, so.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, those people have to go somewhere. So rather than standing in the line, they're clogging up the restaurants and the shops and the everything else. So it's not... I think Fast Pass, Max Pass, Fast Pass Plus, whatever you want to call it, I think it's time to get rid of all that. I think it doesn't solve any problems. It just exacerbates problems. It for the few people who get to go hop on the ride, it creates such pandemonium everywhere else. It just creates chaos. It just makes the whole park more crowded because not as many people are in a line. And I don't know. I just feel like people aren't looking at things correctly when it comes to that. Everybody's like, oh, I love Fast Pass. But do you realize how long all the rest of the lines are because of it? Wouldn't it be better if everything was kind of an evenly spaced out line rather than having 3 lines be really fast and everything be so slow? I mean, I would rather wait in 10 medium paced lines than wait in 3 quick lines and 7 really long lines. I mean, wouldn't you? I mean, I think anybody would.
I don't know. I mean, when we're talking about Disneyland and Fast Pass, I've used that so many times at Disneyland, and it's so helpful. I mean, I have a different feeling about Fast Pass at Disneyland than I do at Disney World.
Yeah.
And because I don't have to plan my trip 60 days in advance to pick my Fast Passes at Disneyland.
Right.
You know, I can go there that day and decide what I want to get a Fast Pass for. So, I don't know. I like it. The Fast Pass program, regardless of whether they call it Max Pass or not, that's not going away because other parks offer, like at Universal Parks, they offer where somebody can pay extra and you can get a Fast Pass to every ride in the park. They don't call it Fast Pass, but you know, it's like a quick queue kind of a thing where you get on that separate line for every ride. And so then people end up going on, you know, like my kids, when we went to Islands of Adventure, Universal Studios Islands of Adventure in Florida, they went on like the Hulk roller coaster like 4 times in a row because we bought that quick queue pass for them.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just makes people just can speed through the park. But I mean, Disney has to have something to offer to balance out the other parks because those other parks offer even a larger option than Disney is.
You know, I don't think Disney has to do anything to kowtow to the other parks. What Disney has to do is provide a better show, better quality attractions, better cast member interactions. That's what people go to Disneyland for. Mm-hmm. You know, they don't go to Disneyland for gimmicks and things. People, I mean, at least they shouldn't. That shouldn't be what it's about. If Disney really wants to compete with the other parks, compete in the ways it's always traditionally competed, which is a time-tested and proven formula that even during Walt Disney's lifetime he had competition. I mean, one looks to the Ocean Park that was opened in Santa Monica in the 60s. That was a big threat to Walt, but he beat them out because he provided a better experience than that park could offer through the Disney magic of storytelling and the amazing attractions that he offered. They couldn't compete with Disney on that level. Mm-hmm. And that park eventually had to shut down. So, I mean, that's how you beat out the competition, not by offering special, you know, perks to people who pay extra, not by offering, you know, Fast Pass plus, you know, Magic Band. That's just all gimmick. Mm-hmm. People don't go to Disney for that. People go to Disney because Pirates of the Caribbean is a magical experience. That's why people go to Disneyland. So enough is enough with all this mathematics with the lines. Just stop it, Disney. Enough. Just make more rides. If you want the lines to be shorter, make more rides, hire more cast members to operate the rides. Don't close down something when you open something new. Just add new things.
Yeah.
That's what Walt did when he first opened Disneyland. The park didn't have enough rides for all the people, so he doubled it in capacity in the first year. So, I mean, come on, get with it.
Well, speaking of gimmicks, Disneyland is going to be adding mobile ordering for their quick service restaurants. So, they already have this at Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
And when I went in December, I didn't use it because I actually didn't realize that they had it until I was in the park looking at my Disney Experience app, and then I'm like, oh, mobile ordering.
Yeah.
So, but I kind of wish I would have used it. But so now they're going to be introducing this to Disneyland. They haven't started it yet, but again, it's going to be through the Disneyland app, and you can order on the app, and then you just go to the restaurant and let them know that you're there, and then you pick up your food. And I think this is good. I mean, I think it's very successful at Disney World, and I don't see why it wouldn't work at Disneyland too. Especially, here's my thing. That Dole Whip line is always so long, and if they allow mobile ordering for Dole Whip, that will be gone. And that would be so much easier. I think it would be less stressful, or even for the people behind the counter serving the Dole Whip, rather than having this long line that they just constantly have to serve. You order it through mobile ordering, and it's just, you let them know you're there, they'll give it to you. So I think it's going to make things a lot quicker and easier.
Okay,
what do you think?
On paper, and when I first heard about this, I was kind of pro mobile ordering. But having thought about it, and then thinking about how has FastPass changed the park, I have a feeling, because this is a new thing and not that many people know about it yet, like you didn't even know about it when you went, it's wonderful for the people who know about it, because it's just such a small percentage of park guests that are doing it. So you walk right up to the counter and get your food. No waiting, no muss, no fuss. But what's going to happen over time is word is going to get out. And more people are going to be using this. And it's going to become a problem. And I think there's several problems that are going to happen. First of all, there's going to be a line for your mobile order eventually. You're going to have to wait in line to pick up your food, even if you've mobile ordered it. And the line, if enough people are using it, the line is probably going to be just as long, I feel.
Yeah.
And then the other problem is, if the line isn't as long, again, where do all the people that would have been standing in line to get their food, where do they go? There'll be more people around the park, cluttering up the walkways, in the shops. It'll just be more people out and about in the park, because they don't have to stand in line to get their food. The real solution to this is to add more restaurants. People will have to wait less in less lines if there's more places to get your food. If there was 3 more fast food eateries in Disneyland, you would be able to order your food at the register and walk right up and get your food. So that's the real solution, but Disney would never do that because it would cost them a lot of money. So rather than think about the guests and put the money in to make the park a wonderful experience, they're going to do this Band-Aid program with this mobile app that's going to be wonderful for maybe the first year, maybe the first 2 years. But eventually, as more people become mobile savvy, and I mean most people are as it is already, but I mean it's only going to get more and more where people are going to start doing everything on their mobile phones, and it'll be second nature. Nowadays, older people might not feel comfortable doing it. People with a big family might be like, it's too much to deal with, let's just go stand in line. Eventually people aren't going to even think that way anymore, and everybody is going to use this. And it's not going to solve any problems. Disney is, another problem with Disney is they're only thinking about the right now. They don't look ahead and see how things are going to be impacted down the path, down the road. They do this so much. We'll talk about this when we record our Walt Disney World episode, but they had some issues with the new Skyway system they're putting in, because they kind of miscalculated the capacity levels that are going to be required when Illuminations lets out.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be a whole problem. And the reason it's going to be a problem is they're not thinking ahead.
Right.
They're they're just not. I don't understand how a big company like that cannot project 10, 20 years down the road and see how these choices they're making now are going to affect things down the road. They're constantly doing that. So I think it's wonderful for the next 1 to 2 years. It'll be great. But I think eventually it's going to end up biting them in the behind.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing about a mobile app, though, is they release it, if it gets too much, they can just stop it. And then it's not there anymore. So,
well, theoretically, they could just stop FastPass. And you know what would happen if they did that? There'd be a huge outcry because now everybody expects it. Mm-hmm. So if you roll something like this out and people come to expect it, then if you take it away, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So they should just not even play around with stuff like this. They should just add more restaurants. That's the solution.
Yeah, but that is, like you said, it's a lot of investment. And then if people don't go to that restaurant and, everybody's still lining up for, one restaurant, the other one is empty, then they're going to feel like,
I don't think
really
there's any empty
there.
restaurants in Disneyland. I mean, can you think of one? I can't. I mean, Hungry Bear might not be as crowded as some of the others because it's out of the way, but watch that change once Star Wars Lands
that's
opens.
Definitely going to change. Yeah, also, they are not even open for dinner.
Right.
So, yeah.
So they should be open for dinner.
Right, and I think that they will be.
Well, once Star Wars Land opens.
Yeah, once Star Wars Land opens, I think they will open.
And I mean, that pizza port is so tiny.
Yeah.
They could add more room to that. Mm-hmm. They could put seating on the roof. They could have some way to access the roof because that's their whole area up there not being used. They could somehow add tables to where the Space Mountain, that whole big roof area above the Magic Eye Theater, or what used to be called the Magic Eye Theater, it's just wasted space up there.
Yep, definitely. And that would be a nice view to be up there sitting, eating your meal. I mean,
they used to have
people
tables
would linger
there.
there.
Do you remember when they had? Remember when they had the space place, which was kind of not where it's where the entrance to Space Mountain is now. That used to be a restaurant, believe it or not.
Right.
In fact, you can still see the menu board. Now it's like a design. But at one time, that big panel that you see when you're walking up towards Space Mountain, that used to be where you saw the menu choices for that restaurant. It's really weird when you see it, when you know what it used to be. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, another gimmicky thing that they're adding is that Disney is going to add a Play Disney Parks app. So again, on your Disneyland app, they're going to, or actually, no, I think this is going to be a separate app.
Yeah.
You can download it for free and you can play games on your phone while you're waiting in line. And I've actually done this already without this app, play games with my, the party that I'm with while we're waiting in line, just kind of play around and, ask trivia questions to people while you're waiting in line or something like that. So, I mean, I think it's a nice idea. I hope that they could actually, use this app and kind of make it, maybe they could make it like a history lesson about the park and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think that would be really cool if they did it that way, because then it would be like, find where Walt's apartment used to be and go there and, take a picture and then upload that picture onto this app, and then you get points and things like that. Like, they could totally make this app into like a scavenger hunt, and then you can end up seeing the park in a completely different way based on this app. And I don't know if that's what their plans are, but if they do something like that, I'm all for that.
Yeah, when I was at Disney World recently, I was I remember I was in a scooter. I kind of rolled my scooter up next to a little window, and I was just kind of sitting in the shade for a minute. Mm-hmm. And somebody walked up to me and said, "Can you please move? Because we're trying to play a game."
Huh.
And they still do that magic card game. I guess when you hold your card up to different windows, it activates different things to different animations and things, and I parked right in front of it.
No.
And the thing is, it's so stupid because I couldn't tell. It just looked like a window display, and
right.
And there was actually a huge line waiting your turn. I wasn't even paying any attention.
Oh.
To my right, there was like a huge line of people waiting their turn, and here I am pulling right in front of them. Yeah, I don't like that, because that's kind of, it creates a line that's a stupid line, because I think they should get rid of that and do this mobile thing instead, because that game is just, it's in the way.
Yeah.
It creates, like, it was like in an area of Fantasyland, right, where like a lot of people go through, like right near the castle, where there's a lot of traffic. Well, there's not like there's no it's traffic everywhere.
Traffic everywhere.
And I was just kind of like settling out of the way. It was a nice view of the castle right next to me, and I just wanted to just chill there for a minute and get out of the way. We're playing a game. I don't know. That kind of turned me off, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't have a problem with this at all. I mean, I have no problems with this. I think it's fine. I would never want to do that, because when I'm in the park, I want to see the park. But on the other hand, now that they have all this Fast Pass nonsense, you're in line so much longer than you used to be. And so you really do get bored. So that maybe this is nice to have something to entertain you that's Disney related, so it keeps you in the spirit of the park.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but if I had my choice, I would probably prefer not to be staring at my phone when I'm in, when you pay $100 to go into a Disney park, you don't want to spend the day staring at your phone. That's how I feel.
Yeah. No, definitely. I definitely agree. But, I mean, I think I like the general idea of it, like a little family thing where you can bond together as a family and play this game together. I think that's, a nice idea. But, again, we don't know too much of the specifics of it. So, we're just kind of talking about a general idea right now. But, when they release more information, we can talk more specifics. But, I mean, yeah, I like it. Hopefully they do something cool with it.
Right.
So, our next topic is that we are going to talk about the Dumbo refurbishment.
Right.
So that they recently redid Dumbo. They redid the queue. They added it like a covering to the queue. And they kind of changed the way that they load the people onto the attraction now. And I think it's great. That queue was always out in the sun.
Yeah.
You just sweating bullets. You're getting sunburnt just by standing in the line. And that line does not move fast because, it doesn't hold a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you're just standing out there in the hot sun. And I'm glad they added the covering. I think that's great. I don't know about the way that they're loading the thing, because the article that I read said that people were still ignoring when they were, so they give people a number and you're supposed to go to that corresponding Dumbo number. And that's the one that you load into. But the one that I read was saying that people were ignoring that and just going to whatever they wanted to go to. So, I mean, that obviously poses a problem.
I don't know if that's going to work, It seems like asking people to use their brains a little too much. And when you, well, I'm not trying to be cute about that. I mean, what I'm saying is when you go to a Disney park, you check out. Like you're not thinking. You're too much in awe of everything you're seeing. You can't be thinking about what number am I and all that. It's too much to ask for certain people to do. I mean, I'm always very like, okay, I have to follow the rules. I was given a number. That's just the way I am. I'm very like I'm very a stickler about doing what I'm told a lot of the time. But other people are just kind of like, oh, look at the pretty carousel next door. Oh, look at the beautiful Dumbo topiary. Like, they're not thinking about what number they are. So.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And they're also, if that's not what's going on, they're fighting with their kids. They're like, oh, behave, all that what's going on. So, because a lot of kids in that line. But I do have to say, that aside, I think that they did a wonderful, terrific job on the new queue. Like, finally something positive I can say this episode. I'm glad to say something positive. Yeah, I really think they did a marvelous job with the space that they had, because they had a limited amount of space, and they really kind of, because that area where the queue is now located was always just kind of like an area where parents would just kind of chill out while they were waiting for their, you know, their other spouse would be in line with the kid, and they'd be sitting back there with their stroller. Mm-hmm. You know, it was just kind of a wasted space area where there's other areas people can go chill out. And so I'm glad they moved the queue back there, moved so it's not as intrusive and doesn't look as ugly, because sometimes when you have a long sway back queue, is that the right word? When you go back and forth back and forth.
Yeah.
Just with no theming like that out in the middle, it just looks ugly. I'm not saying the people look ugly. I'm just saying the whole conglomerate of that looks ugly with all the strollers everywhere. It was just kind of ugly. I mean, this beautiful attraction with this ugly queue.
Right.
Kind of messing it all up.
Right, because the queue was like right in front of the attraction.
Yeah, you couldn't even see the attraction.
Yeah.
You could never get a good picture of it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So anyway, I'm really happy, and I love the details that they added with the posters that are taken from the title cards of the opening credits of the actual movie, which is a wonderful touch. I love it when they think that, you know, when they think that deeply into it and put that much attention to detail into these things. I have to say that it's too bad they don't have the space to do what they did with Dumbo and Walt Disney World, because I thought that was a fantastic way to solve this problem. And these are the types of things Disney should be doing, rather than adding Fast Pass and all that garbage. Coming up with innovative ways for people to wait in line. Instead of having to wait in line, give people a ticket and say, go into this air-conditioned, beautifully themed play area, chill out for 20 minutes, and when it's your turn, we'll call you.
Right.
That's how you do it right. Not this Fast Pass garbage. So I really loved that whole system that they came up with for Dumbo. The theming in that tent where you go wait, I mean, there was nothing for adults to do. It was all for little kids. It was not, you know, it was nothing I mean, I couldn't even, if I wanted to, go on the slides or whatever.
Right.
But it was still enjoyable because you got to watch all the kids having fun, and there was just all this eye candy everywhere to look at. The wonderful theming. I mean, they just got really creative with the whole way they did it. It looked like you really stepped into the movie of Dumbo. I was so impressed. And then the fact that they have the dueling Dumbos, I mean, that just solves so many problems for Disney World. Now, it's a pleasure to go on that attraction because you get to go in that little cool waiting area with all the beautiful theming and everything. It's wonderful.
Right.
So, and, I mean, I had to wait a half hour, but I didn't care. I wanted to. I wanted to enjoy the moment. So, I mean...
And it kind of creates the whole story because you're immersed in Dumbo's world in his circus tent, and then you get to go on the attraction and fly.
Right. While you're waiting, you hear circus music in there, and then they give you a themed ticket, like it's a circus ticket, and it's like a laminated little ticket, and they're color coded, and they say everybody with a red A ticket, A for acrobat, it's your turn. Everyone with a blue B ticket, B for balloons. You know, they would say some circus word that had to do with the letter or something.
Right.
C for clowns. You know, they do that. So, I mean, it was fun. I really thought that was wonderful. These are the solutions to queuing that Disney needs to be coming up with. These creative solutions that add to the experience, not this whole fast pass nonsense. But anyway, I digress. Next topic.
Well, the next topic is, along with the Dumbo refurbishment, they also closed Main Street for a while, and they redid the streetcar track. Yeah. And so they have now updated the track, and they did some pretty intricate brickwork all along Main Street, going down the middle, all the way to, in Town Square, all the way to the hub. They added all of this nice brickwork, and they have brought back the horse-drawn streetcars, but because of course they were closed because the track was being refurbished, but now they're back.
Right.
So what do you think of the brickwork?
First of all, the brickwork is beautiful, and it gives me peace of mind to know that this is a classic attraction that is not going away anytime soon, because they just invested a whole bunch of money in refurbishing it. The other thing is, the brickwork was mainly done not for, it has an added benefit of being beautiful, but it was done for the benefit of the people who, well, not the people, but the beings that operate the trolley, which are horses. It's easier on their hooves than the type of pavement that had been there for all these decades. So it's the main reason they replaced it was for their benefit. Another change they made for the benefit of the horses is, instead of having the horse turn the same direction all the time, whether they're coming or going, they reversed the direction of the trolley cars when they go through Central Plaza. So now, instead of going up to Tomorrowland, around to the castle, then down to Frontierland and Adventureland, when the horse reaches Central Plaza, they turn to Adventureland, go up to Frontierland, stop at the castle, then they go back by passing Tomorrowland. So instead of, now they basically do a figure 8 every time they do a lap, right? So that's easier on the horses too, because they're not always pulling in the same direction. It's easier on their backs. So they did a lot of changes for the benefit of the horses. And it had a mutual benefit of also making it look beautiful. I'm also really impressed that they decided to save a couple pieces of the original track railing. They preserved. They're not in the park anymore, but they have preserved them because it's a classic opening day attraction. So they kept a piece of it. And I always felt that, going back to the 80s and 90s, I always felt that there was a lot of cracks in that where the track was. Yeah. It looked kind of cruddy there all the time. So I think that by adding that brickwork and everything, it really improved the whole look of that tremendously. Really impressed. Disney did a great job. I have nothing but praise for the whole thing, start to finish. I think they did a wonderful job. But there was something else we wanted to talk about, right, Ruth?
Right. So since the track reopened and the horse-drawn carriages obviously started operating again, somebody decided to start a petition to get people get Disney to stop using the horse-drawn streetcars altogether. And they were asking for 50,000 signatures, and currently there's 48,500 signatures on this petition.
Yeah. So some very misinformed person or people, or I don't know, because they're unnamed, they went on some sort of a petition website where you can anonymously create a petition for whatever. I think it has to be something to do with nature or animal love or whatever. And don't get me wrong, next to my religion and Disney and my family, my biggest love in the world is animals. if I'm not watching something Disney or thinking about something Disney, I'm watching a cat video, a video about iguanas, horses. I've always had an affinity for animals. I'm an animal lover. And I'm an advocate of animal rights, for sure. But I'm not a fanatic, because the reasoning behind this petition is that it's so cruel to have a horse pull a trolley filled with people and have them serve people for entertainment. And these, that's basically their whole thinking. First of all, these are animals that are born into that as part of their genetic makeup. Mm-hmm. And these type of animals, if they're not doing this type of thing, are miserable. This is part of what gives them pleasure in life, believe it or not. And it's been happening for thousands of years. This is not anything new.
Right, right.
And Disney horses work 2 to 3 hours a day. If it gets too hot, they shut down the attraction immediately and bring the horses backstage. So they gauge the temperatures. They don't want them working when it's too hot out. They also just recently, like I said, fixed up the track for them. They put in brickwork for them. They changed the route pattern for them with the horses in mind. They are taken care of by such loving, caring cast members that devote their entire lives to caring for these horses, and they love them like they do their own children. Mm-hmm. And it's this is a career for the people that, these are not hourly cast members taking care of the horses. These are career people.
Right.
that and the other thing is that their living conditions are probably better than my living conditions. They're probably better fed than I am. I mean, they are pampered, and they've often been called the happiest horses on earth because they really are. They work maybe 3 days a week. They have a lot of horses, so they can rotate them. They don't have to use the same horse every day. They have a whole stable of horses
right.
to choose from. If one looks like he's not up to it for the day, oh, well, we'll just, we'll, instead of using Jack, we'll use Nellie today. I mean, and these caretakers know these horses so well that they know when they're not feeling it for the day, because they live with these horses, that's their
right,
their livelihood. And for some and the other thing is, the way that these trolley cars are designed, it's all pushes and pulleys. It's a whole well-engineered system that a human being could pull the trolley. It's not like full of people. Somebody commented that if you had 2 decently healthy teenagers and they could pull one of those trolleys full of people, because the way it's engineered, it's not that difficult to pull. And a horse is about 20 times as strong as a human being.
Right.
So that horse is not suffering at all. They don't they take big breaks between each trip. The horse just waits there for a little while before he does his next round. I mean, these people are so stupid because they don't understand that these horses are not in any way suffering.
Right.
They're being treated like gold. And one of their other arguments was that they force the horses to stand there and listen to all these noises and things so that they get used to crowds and they're not they're not stressed out by noise and heavy crowds and things. Well, yeah, that's true. But you know what? That's true with almost every horse that's bred for any professional duties whatsoever around the entire globe. So why are they pulling out Disneyland for this? This is and it's also something that's been done for thousands of years. So, I mean, all of a sudden Disney is terrible for doing this when it's something that everyone does. Rodeo horses do it. I mean, look at how a rodeo horse is treated compared to how a Disney horse is treated. If you want to pick on something, pick on the rodeo horses. Not that I think you should. I don't think there's anything wrong with that either, but I'm just saying, why are they singling out Disney for this? This is absolutely ridiculous. So I posted this survey on a group I go to on Facebook called Vintage Disneyland, which has several thousands of followers, tens of thousands of followers. And not 5 minutes after it was posted, the whole group exploded. I mean, like, everybody had something to say. Mostly what I just said. There was only a couple people that felt more in the other, the direction of the survey. So I want to know who these 50,000 people are who agree with this. They're obviously misinformed. And the other thing that kind of annoyed me about the survey, or not the survey, the petition, is that the way they worded it was very, like, one-sided, giving false facts, not giving the full truth of what's going on, kind of trying to persuade people to think the way they do by not providing the truth or leaving out important information. So, again, that's another shady deal in there. So how do you feel?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, there's certain animals on this earth that they actually like to work, and they don't feel like their purpose is being met if they don't have a job. I mean, there's some dogs that are like that, and they are better animals. They have a better quality of life when you put them to work, and you can see that in the way that they behave. Right. And these particular horses that they're using at Disneyland, these are not, little thin twigs of horses. These are huge, massive horses. I don't know the breed of horse.
They use Belgians and is that what's the ones that pull the
Clydesdales?
Clydesdales, yeah. How'd you know that?
I do know that.
I was talking about the beer wagon.
And I've seen the Rose Parade many times.
They mostly use Belgians and Clydesdales, which are huge horses that are stronger than an ox.
Right.
So
I mean, that's what these horses are meant to do. I mean, that's why they are so strong. That's what they're on this earth to do. So, I mean, I think, working 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, and also, they are more than considerate of the weather. And I think that, I would hate to lose these horse-drawn carriages because, a lot of times kids don't get to interact with animals in this way. And going to Disneyland and seeing a horse-drawn carriage, that's huge for some kids. I mean, that could spark a kid's love of horses, and then they could end up being, a horse caretaker later in life.
Yeah.
And I would hate for that to go away.
Yeah, and so much of the animal stuff, the live animal stuff in Disneyland has gone away. I mean, look at Big Thunder Ranch recently closed.
Yep.
All those animals are gone. So, I mean, this is one of the, in fact, it's the sole way to interact with a live animal in Disneyland today. So, I mean, I think it's important. It's part of what Disneyland has always been. It's an opening day attraction. It's something Walt specifically wanted in his park. And I don't think it's going away anytime soon, but I just hate... I mean, it's things like this that kind of sparked the whole taking of the redhead away.
Right.
I mean, one person said something, and then over time, it just grew and grew and grew and grew, and then finally Disney kowtowed and got rid of it.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm afraid that this might plant seeds is my only concern.
Right.
So let's hope it doesn't.
Yeah, let's definitely hope it doesn't. All right, so the next topic that we want to talk about is over in DCA, Disney's California Adventure. They have plans to close Bugs Land and to build what I'm going to call Marvel Land right now, even though they won't be calling it Marvel Land.
Mm-hmm.
So Bugs Land was open. It wasn't open when the park originally opened in 2001, but it was built around, I think, a year later. And it was
soon
built.
after.
Yeah. And it was built to have an area for children because the park didn't have a lot of rides for children. It was, unlike Disneyland, it was kind of a little bit more, the audience that they were trying to attract was older. And so that's why they put this in. And I mean, my daughter was born in 2001, and so I've been taking her to DCA since she was born. She grew up going to that park. She grew up at Bugs Land, and one of her favorite attractions that we would always have to go on at DCA was Heimlich's Choo Choo Train. And I love this area. It's so well done. Like, the theming of this area is just top notch. I mean, the little details that they put in there to make you feel like you're the size of a bug and that you've basically shrunk is just amazing. I love it. And I'm definitely sad to see it go. Although I am willing to see that I think its time has come.
Well, you're a Marvel girl. You love Marvel stuff.
I do love it, but you know what? A Bug's Life is a really good movie, and I think, and like I said, this area is really well themed. And I mean, maybe, I don't know. The one thing that really kind of bothers me the most is when they take this away and they add Marvel. So that's cool. I'm all for that, as long as it's not so totally scary that I won't want to ride any of the rides. So that's always my fear there. But they got to have somewhere else where they have like a place for kids. They don't have to have it all in one area. You got to have some kid rides throughout the park, but you got to have that. You can't just take it away and not have something else for kids to go on. So that's like my overall concern about them taking out Bugs Land. But I have huge, wonderful nostalgic memories of this area, with my daughter.
Well, having never stepped foot in California Adventure, I can't say I have nostalgia for a Bugs Land. I have seen a lot of video of it over the years. I'm familiar with all the different attractions in this area. I never have had any problem with it. I always thought it was well themed, well done. Definitely had a Disney vibe to it that was endearing and charming. So I felt like it was a nice thing to have in California Adventure. And I am a little sad to see these more intimate little things that are more like what you'd find in Disneyland being taken out of California Adventure. I feel like that's the wrong direction. You want more of these charming, smaller things and less of these big e-ticket things. You need more of a mix.
Right.
I think it's Raleigh Crump that would call Disneyland a salad. You had all different types of ingredients that make up what Disneyland is. It's not all about the salad dressing. You've got to have the croutons and the lettuce and the tomatoes. It's all these different types of experiences that make it magical. And to have everything be, a big budget, e-ticket experience, it takes away the charm. I think that's a lot of the problem with the Universal parks.
Definitely.
Because they don't have these little charming things, and the few ones they do have are on the chopping block, or at least on the endangered species list. E.T., we're looking at you. So, I mean, it's just like, E.T. attraction, the equivalent to that in Disneyland would be Peter Pan, and Disney would never get rid of Peter Pan.
Never.
But, I mean, Universal doesn't have that type of mentality. If they felt that E.T. could be something bigger and better, could be put there, they would do it, you know?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then really the only reason they haven't is because Steven Spielberg has made a big stink about it. And if they ever did take it out, he would make an even bigger stink about it. So they're almost kind of afraid to, but they've been wanting to for years, and you know it, you know?
Right.
But that being said, I mean, why does Disney want to model itself after Universal? I mean, why don't you model yourself after what you are? Because that's what brought you to where you are today.
Right.
And what made your company a success. And look at Star Wars Night that they recently had. People went to that because they had a nostalgic connection. They were willing to pay a premium because this was their childhood. Mm-hmm. If Disney keeps adding all of these big e-ticket, things, people are gonna not have that childhood nostalgic connection to the parks anymore. And again, it's a short-sighted business model. You're not looking at the big picture. You're not looking down the road. You need things that appeal to the little kids.
Right.
Because this is where, and I hate to make it sound, because it sounds very cultish in a way. I guess Disney can be considered a cult in some ways, but if you want to get people into Disney the way Ruthie and I are into Disney, you got to plant those seeds when you're young.
Yep.
If you don't get them when they're young, by the time they're a teenager, they're not going to have that nostalgia that draws them to the parks. They're not going to have that connection to Disney that's an emotional connection.
Yep.
The reason Ruthie and I are connected to Disney is not because of, big movie, things like, what's a good example of that, Ruth? Like a big Disney movie that came out when we were kids. There weren't any because they weren't making them back then. Right. Well, there you go, because they were making these family-friendly, cute films, and then we were also having full access to the classic library back then, which kids today don't have as much. Like, we were seeing the repeats of Cinderella and Peter Pan, and even the live-action things like the Shaggy Dog and whatnot. Ruthie and I grew up with these, even though those were from before we were born. We were still growing up with them because Disney was still marketing them.
Right.
So, this was when we were very young. This is when the seeds were planted. And if you don't do that, you're not going to have Disney fans anymore, because they're going to die out. You're not doing things that appeal to the heartstrings anymore. Everything is big and flashy and explosions, and why don't you just put the Transformers in your park, Disney? It's the same thing. I feel like that's what Marvel Land is going to be like. It's going to be like the Spider-Man ride and the Transformers rides in Universal.
Right.
I don't care about that stuff. I have no emotional connection to that. It doesn't tug at my heartstrings. It does to yours because you're into Marvel, but
but not the same way that, so what you were saying, I'm thinking about this and I'm like, so I took my daughter to Bugs Land. She rode Heimlich's choo-choo train every time, but now she's not going to have the opportunity to, when she has kids, to take them back there on that ride.
And do that, exactly.
And that's exactly what I did with my kids. I grew up, riding Snow White and Mr. Toad and Peter Pan, and I had the opportunity to then take them back when they're young and on those same rides and experience it completely different, because I'm now riding it as their parent with them. Right. And so that's the thing about taking out Bugs Land, is you are taking all of these memories that people have built in that area along with it. Yeah. And Marvel is different, and the thing that I feel like this Marvel Land is basically kind of like a political thing that they're doing, because they can't build Marvel in Florida, which is where they have all the land to do it. They have to do it in California because of, different agreements and Marvel license to Universal, theme parks and all this stuff. I won't get into all of that, but
Right.
so they have to do it in California, and there's no room in California. So they got to take what they can get, and this is why Bugs Land is going away.
The problem is, Ruthie, there is room. It's called a third gate, and this is where they should have built Marvel and Star Wars.
Yep.
And then built the monorail to connect it. Build it down the road somewhere in Anaheim.
Yeah.
It might not be right next to the rest of the Disneyland Resort, but people will go anyway. They go to Knott's Berry Farm, and it's not next to Disneyland.
Right, yeah.
So,
Yep,
anyway.
that's true. I mean, they could have built a third park, half Star Wars, half Marvel.
If
Done.
I had to choose between, do you want to go to Marvel Land or do you want to go to a land based on the Disney Pixar classic Bugs Land, I would choose Bugs Land personally. And I only say that because I have no interest, no emotional connection to Marvel.
Right.
I didn't sign up for Marvel. I signed up for Disney. And when I grew up, Disney and Marvel were not one and the same at all. Same thing can be said about Star Wars, but that's a little bit different because by the 80s, Disney was kind of doing stuff with Star Wars. So I feel that has a little bit stronger connection than Marvel. Because, Star Tours opened in 87.
Right.
Same can be said with Indiana Jones because when in 89 they had the Indiana Jones stunt show at Disney's Hollywood Studios, MGM back then. And then they had the one in California in Adventureland, that attraction. So I just feel like there's been a longer history with those two franchises, and I'm okay with those two franchises. And to me, they sort of feel like Disney in a way.
Right.
But when it comes to Marvel, it feels like this. What is Disney doing being in business with Marvel? It has nothing to do with Disney to me. I don't understand it.
Right.
It's like let's say you're a chef who makes sushi. You're a sushi chef in a fine Japanese restaurant. And all of a sudden, the owner buys a McDonald's franchise and wants you to start selling Big Macs.
Right.
And say, when you're done working on your sushi, will you fry up a few burgers for me?
Right.
I mean, it's just like, why are you combining? These are not two great tastes that go together.
Right.
Back to that thing.
Yeah. I love the movies, don't get me wrong. And there's definitely a place for the Marvel movies. And I think that they really got the niche there. But translating that into the theme parks, they don't know how to do that yet.
Yeah,
So-
they're taking out classic things that people love.
Right.
I mean, another example is they took out the Tower of Terror and put in a Marvel thing. They took out the Universe of Energy, which people did love,
Right.
but it was long overdue for an update. So rather than update it because it's a classic attraction, they just take it out and snap in some Marvel
Right.
stuff.
Right. And again, they're just doing that because it's not, Guardians of the Galaxy isn't being used by Universal, so they want to snap it up and put it in the parks, real quick before Universal does. So it's almost like this cat and mouse game that they're playing now with Universal when it comes to the
doesn't belong in
theme parks.
Epcot.
Yeah.
And same as Marvel doesn't belong in a park that's supposed to have the theme of California. I mean, what is it?
Well, that theme is long gone.
Well, they kind of were going back to it when they added Cars Land and they added Buena Vista Street. That all had a California vibe to it. And they were redoing Pixar. Well, we'll get into that in a minute.
Right.
But Paradise Pier, they were redoing that to make it more, historically accurate. They were redoing the Grizzly, they rethemed it to Grizzly Flats, that whole area. They seem to really be moving in the direction of the California thing, and I was loving it, and everybody was really happy with it. I remember when they first premiered Cars Land and Buena Vista Street, a few people were saying, you know, for right now, I think I like this park better than Disneyland. That didn't last long.
Right.
But I mean, for a time, it was kind of a novelty, and people really loved that direction.
Yeah.
But now, I don't know.
I mean, Cars Land is top notch. I mean, you step into the movie when you walk into that section of DCA.
And the nice thing about it is they didn't have to take out any existing attractions to put it in.
Right.
And it enhanced the park. It didn't take away from the theme of the park because, you know, the open road, cars, that whole thing is a California type thing.
Route 66.
Route 66, all that. So even though the movie doesn't take place in California, it still fits in.
Right.
You know, so anyway.
Yeah. So I'm sad to see it go, but, you know, hopefully I can still have some good memories in that park because it's changing rapidly, which leads us to the next topic. It is now Pixar Fest at Disneyland and DCA. So what they've done is they've added the Pixar Play Parade, and where they used to have it at DCA, now they have it at Disneyland. So that's the daytime parade that's running right now. And they had Paint the Night for the 60th anniversary. And now they have that at DCA for the nighttime.
Right, and they don't have a nighttime parade at Disneyland.
Because they have the fireworks show.
Well, there was a time when they had the fireworks and a nighttime parade. What happened to those days?
Yeah, I don't know.
they used to have... in the 90s, they had Phantasmic twice a night. They had the Main Street Electrical Parade twice a night. And fireworks.
Right.
So, if you're paying $100 to get in, I would expect nothing less.
Right. So you want to see the Main Street Electrical Parade, Phantasmic, and the fireworks for the amount that you're paying.
Well, it doesn't have to be the Electrical Parade, but,
right,
you know.
Right, some equivalent. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be moving that parade to DCA. It should be getting its own parade.
Right.
That's another thing. So.
Right. So, how do you feel about the Pixar Play Parade?
I think it's fine. It's not my favorite parade. I think it's okay. I don't understand why they moved it to Disneyland. I don't hate that they moved it there, but I just don't get it, what the reasoning for it is, because they had a perfectly marvelous daytime parade.
Right.
That I feel they could have just left it and had that still play in California Adventure. And I'm kind of really sad to see, what's it called? The Soundsational. I'm kind of sad to see that go, because out of all the more recent parades that Disney's done, I think that was my favorite. I loved the music, and I loved the floats that were designed by, Jody Daly and
Kevin Kidney,
who I'm huge fans of their artwork, and I follow them online.
Yep.
And they're real like Disney people. Like they're really into the classic Disney look and that mid-century Mary Blair inspired look, and I love their stuff. So anyway, I'm sad to see that go. I'm hoping it'll come back after Pixar Fest. I don't know. Yeah. You know the history of Disney storing its floats. They've had some incidents in the past.
Right.
Not in Disneyland, so maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I feel like, when they brought the parade, the Pixar Play Parade to Disneyland, they should have replaced the Monsters University and put it back to just being generic Monsters Inc. Because I feel like people have more nostalgia feels for the original, and the Monsters Inc. was sort of a short-lived, gimmicky kind of thing to promote the sequel, or the prequel, or whatever it is.
Yeah. And
I feel like when people see the monsters, they want to see the original monster movie, not, with what's the little girl's name?
With Boo.
With Boo and all that. They don't want to see the college years. They don't have it. So that's one thing I think they should have fixed. I also feel like the floats that they added were kind of cheap looking.
Yeah.
Like the I can't think of the name of the movie now. The one with the happy and sad.
Inside Out.
Inside Out. Sorry, folks. This is unedited. I felt like that float looked really terrible with the rainbow streams coming out in the back. That looked really cheap.
It's like a flag. Like
in
the back.
It was like the pride flag flying at the Disneyland parade.
Maybe that was the point. Chris.
Maybe, who knows? But anyway, I'm not a fan of that. I think it looks kind of cheap for a Disney float. I also feel like the new up float is it could be bigger.
They're small. Both of those.
They're very small.
Yeah.
And I like the lamp at the beginning, but I feel like, is that all there is?
Right.
Yeah. Is that all there is? Is that all there is?
Yeah.
Who sang that? Peggy Lee? To quote Peggy Lee, is that all there is?
Who has Disney history.
Yes.
So, yes. So we're still on the topic.
Yes, I and Am were voiced by Peggy Lee, among other characters from Lady and the Tramp.
Yes.
Peg.
I think I watched this when it was at DC a while back, and at DCA, I'm sorry. And
Washington,
that
D.C.
parade feels like it fits in DCA.
Yeah, I agree. I think it has a better feel for that park. It just fits in better.
Yeah. Also, I thought, maybe I'm misthinking, but I thought the parade was more interactive, so that it would stop places and kids would dance and stuff like that, or am I thinking of a different parade?
There's so many parades that have been like that over the years.
Right.
It's possible that you're confusing it. But I've never seen that parade live, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I could very well be confusing it, but I don't know. I mean, it just definitely doesn't seem like it fits in Disneyland the way that it does at DCA.
And I kind of feel the same way about the Paint the Night. I feel like that's more geared towards Disneyland. Of course, there is a lot of Pixar stuff in it, but there's also a lot of classic Disney movie stuff in it, too. So, I don't know. I feel like those, like, Sorcerer Mickey belongs in Disneyland, not California Adventure. Tinkerbell belongs in Disneyland. I don't know.
No, I 100% agree.
I don't understand what was the purpose for this flip-flop. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. It's temporary.
Right.
It didn't change anything about the park. That's going to never come back again.
Right.
So I'm just kind of perplexed by it. That's all.
Right.
I don't get it.
I love Paint the Night, and I saw it at Disneyland during the 60th anniversary. Mm-hmm. That parade is so much fun, and it is such a good parade. And you just come away just loving Disney after that parade. And you're right, it doesn't feel the same at DCA that it had the feel in Disneyland.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're right, there's a lot of Pixar stuff in the parade, but that's fine.
The only thing I don't like about Paint the Night, I think it's a terrific parade, generally speaking. But there's one float in the parade that kind of annoys me. Just as an aside. It has nothing to do with the topic at hand, really, but that big truck, it's like a big rig driving down. It's a big Mack truck driving down Main Street, USA. Walt Disney is turning in his ashtray because I guess he was cremated. I mean, that is the last thing Walt would have ever wanted to see going down his turn-of-the-century Main Street. In fact, there were a couple times that have been documented where maintenance people were caught by Walt driving a truck on to a show area in Disneyland to do some sort of maintenance stuff, and they were chastised by Walt. He said, "Would you see a truck in turn-of-the-century America?" And he would yell at people. So, I mean, I know it's supposed to be part of the parade and it's the theme of the movie, but still, and it's not like a real Mack truck, but it's like, I don't know, just something about it rubs me the wrong way to see this big truck drive down Main Street, drive past the castle. Other than that, I think it's a wonderful parade.
Right. Yeah.
Get rid of the truck and then we'll be fine.
Well, they're not getting rid of it because it's a Pixar character.
I know, and everybody else seems to love the truck. So.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad they brought Paint the Night back because it was a very hugely successful parade. So I'm glad for that.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I'm glad they brought it back too, but why couldn't they have brought it back to Disney?
Right, I agree. Because, so, a while back, I mean, this was probably like 2000s, early 2000s, I was at DCA and they had Main Street Electrical Parade there for a while because they were trying to draw people to go to DCA.
Yeah, they brought it back for a while, yeah.
And I remember standing there watching it and it didn't feel the same.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing with these two parades. Like, they are not in their homes where they belong. So they don't give you the same kind of
emotional
warm fuzzies that you would get normally watching them.
Right.
So
yeah, and I don't get it. I don't understand why.
Right.
What the thought process was.
Yeah.
Were they thinking, well, we have to have a daytime parade in Disneyland because it's expected, but we don't want to have two parades because we don't want to pay for two
groups of people,
of performers. So, well, that's probably what the bottom line is.
Yeah.
Even though Disney is charging an arm and a leg to get into their parks, they're cost cutting, which is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Unacceptable. They should have a daytime and a nighttime parade in both parks. For what they're charging, you get what you pay for.
Right. Right. So.
I mean, when you paid half, even accounting for inflation, when you paid for half what you pay now in the 90s, like I said, the daytime parade ran twice. Mm-hmm. The nighttime parade ran twice. Fantasmic ran twice. And they had fireworks every night in the summer. Every night. And they were open from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. every day in the summer. Every day.
Yep.
So, enough nonsense.
Well, let's talk about some of the theming that they added to the parks.
Okay.
And, you know, so the theming, the different, like, decorations that they added, and then also, like, they added a whole bunch of new, like, food items, and we won't go through all of that, but I know you wanted to talk about a couple of things. So Disneyland's pretty easy because it doesn't seem like they really did too much to add it, to change it too much Pixar. So besides the entertainment, they put, you know, different colored buntings and things like that around the park.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with the bunting. I think it's pretty. I think it's colorful and nice and something different. And it was handled well. I don't think it distracts from the Main Street theme.
Right.
It corresponds fine.
Yeah, because if it was like 4th of July in, you know, turn of the century Main Street, they would have bunting as decoration.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like Pixar colors, but that's fine. I think the only really other thing that they've done in Disneyland is your favorite restaurant, Alien Pizza Planet, has arrived.
Right. Well, I don't know exactly what Disney was thinking with the sign on the outside of the building. It looks really bad. They added some sort of a cheap looking covering over the existing Red Rocket's pizza port, and it looks like the aliens are like floating around covering up the sign with like this blue they're gonna do like some insect repellent work on the building.
Yeah.
You know, those blue tarps they hang over.
It looks like a tarp. Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, I think once you get inside the restaurant, I think they did a really clever job, and it looks really cute. I think they did a nice job with the theming, with all the little aliens floating around. And I would actually like to see that stay after the Pixar Fest is over, because I kind of like it. I think it adds to the ambiance of that restaurant. So I have no problem with that either.
Right.
The only problem I have with the decoration, the decor, that's why I said decoration. I was going to say decor, is the sign on Pizza Port.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm fine with everything.
Yeah, so back when they redid Tomorrowland and they added this restaurant there, this was back like 98, I always wondered why it wasn't Aliens Pizza Planet.
Yeah.
Why didn't they build it back then? I mean, Toy
they had
Story
the
was a
big
huge
rocket
hit.
in front, like they
Right.
have in the movie. Yeah.
I don't care if the rest of the land isn't, Pixar themed or whatever. They could make that restaurant Alien Pizza Planet. I don't know why they didn't do it.
I don't
So
either.
I totally agree with you. They should leave it. Put a real sign up there. Take the
Yeah.
old sign down. And
yeah,
leave it.
and maybe add even more theming.
Right. And they, I've heard people, rumors about, the old Starcade. They could turn that into more of it. Because, the Pizza Planet was kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese kind of a thing in Toy Story where they had games and things like that. So they could translate that theme over to the old Starcade area and upgrade that and make that look like a kind of a Toy Story theme. And there you go. You have a whole new area where people can stay for hours because they're not going to be in the lines and they're not going to be waiting for their food. So they can go play, video games in the old Starcade.
Right.
So that's my thing. But yeah, the tarp has to go. That's so un-Disney. Like, I was very shocked to see that because it's just not like Disney to do something like that. So the other thing, they have a couple of, they have different food items basically at every restaurant that they have. They have something new, special. They have tons of different flavors of churros now at the different carts. But one of the things that they added to Cafe Orleans is a 3-course ratatouille themed meal.
Yes.
And it's $40 per person, and it's just for the Pixar Fest. And you can, pick from this menu that they have, and this seems really cool. I would definitely want to do this.
Yeah, I was looking at the menu and I was like, and the article I looked at had pictures of everything. It looked amazing. The food looked absolutely delicious. I think that the price seemed a little high, but maybe I'd pay that for it. I mean, the food looked really gourmet and really good. It was $40 a person, but you had a whole cheese appetizer plate which had all sorts of different cheeses and crackers and fruit, and it had like dried apricot. I mean, it looked delicious. And then the main dish, of course, was shrimp ratatouille, which looked delicious.
Yes. Yeah, and they tried to make it look like the ratatouille
from the movie. Yeah. And then they had beignets, my New Orleans fritters, a la mode. Oh my God, that would taste so... I never even thought of eating it a la mode, but that would be so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yum.
Yeah,
and they showed pictures of it, and it looked as good as it sounded.
Yes.
And the
of course,
thing is...
all you can drink...
mint juleps.
Mint julep. I almost said mimosa.
They had... Yeah, that would be even better.
Right, there you go.
But they had... They commented in the article that for once the beignets were round and not Mickey shaped.
It's not going to fit in the bowl if it has ears.
Yeah, I think that's so clever that they decided to do that at Cafe Orleans. So that's another thing that I like about... So, I mean, there are things I like about Pixar Fest, and then there's things I don't like. So it's not all bad. Right.
Well, see, like, this is the kind of theming that you expect to have at Disneyland. Something like this at a new like menu thing at a restaurant not some like complete overhaul of the whole, look of the park.
Right.
So,
And then-
this fits right in.
The other thing I thought was so cute was they had the straw that you could buy with Remy on it, and it looks like a wooden spoon with Remy like clinging onto it. It was really cute. In fact, I have to say, I did watch a video today of all the different merchandise options with Pixar Fest, and they have some really cute merchandise, too.
They do. You're right.
Yeah.
There's definitely some stuff that I'm like, how do I get this?
Yeah.
So, yes, I definitely agree on all of that. I would love to do this. If I can get there when Pixar Fest is still going, I would definitely want to eat at Cafe Orleans.
Yeah, me too. I think I would want to. And I think I might be willing to pay the $40 because it does look that good.
Right.
It'd be a special treat.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you wanted to say about like the overall decor or anything like that?
As far as Disneyland, do you want me to talk about at DCA? The decor over there?
Sure, we can transition over to DCA if you don't have anything else about Disneyland.
Yeah, that's we pretty much talked about, aside from one other thing we'll talk about at the end, we've pretty much covered everything at Disneyland. So we can talk about DCA if you'd like.
Yeah. Let's go across the Esplanade to DCA.
Yeah. Oh, and one thing we should mention about the Esplanade is they added a special audio loop in the Esplanade that's Pixar themed, which is unusual. Disney doesn't usually change the Esplanade loop for a special event like this, so I thought that was really neat.
Do you have that, Chris?
I do not, but I'm working on it.
Okay.
I'm compiling a track list. I have people on the job for me.
Just so our listeners know, that's in the works.
Yeah.
All right, so over at DCA, it's definitely a lot more Pixar themed than Disneyland, which is fine, because I would expect that. That park is overall more Pixar themed anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with them going all out. They have the bunting there too, but then of course, they have different areas in the park that are Pixar themed, and they have a specific area all the way in the back that they have, big archway Pixar Fest and things like that. They also have tons of meet and greets.
Yeah, they have the whole
DCA.
Paradise Garden outdoor eating area is all become a meet and greet place for the Pixar characters. The video I watched, they had Jessie, the yodeling cowgirl, walking around.
Right.
And then they had like an indoor meet and greet that you could see different characters at different times, and you could, get a one-on-one and have your picture taken. And in the video, it was some of the characters from A Bug's Life were posing for pictures. And then they also had, and I saw this on My Sage also, but I haven't seen any video of it yet, because in the video I watched, they weren't performing at the time, but they have like a Pixar-themed band.
Oh, yeah.
I heard that it's kind of like a Spike Jones kind of band, and like they honk horns and blow slide whistles and make funny sound effects and do all sorts of wacky sounds like Spike Jones used to do. I haven't heard it yet, but I'm curious to hear some of their music. It sounds fun.
Right, that does sound
fun.
fun.
And they play all Pixar songs. And there's quite a few, actually. Even though...
Oh, yeah, there is.
Even though, if you think about it, the only Pixar movie that's an out-and-out musical is Coco.
Right.
The other ones would have one or two or maybe at the most 3 songs in it, but they weren't really musicals like Coco. So it's interesting, just over the years, how many Pixar songs have kind of accumulated. I mean, even like Finding Nemo had no songs in it. They actually had to write songs for it later when they made a stage show of it at Disney World. So,
right.
And then those songs have sort of become synonymous with Finding Nemo, like Big Blue World and those songs. So, I mean, that's interesting.
Yeah.
All these non-musicals, and yet there's so many Pixar songs now.
Right.
Mostly all written by Randy Newman,
with
some exceptions.
Yes. Yes, he's definitely the Pixar, creating the Pixar soundtrack there.
Yeah.
So, but the main thing that they're doing in DCA for the theming hasn't even opened yet, which is Pixar Pier.
Right, but I feel that that's more of a permanent change. It's not really part of Pixar Fest. It's going to open during Pixar Fest, but once Pixar Fest is over, that's going to stay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And along with like the Incredicoaster they're building that hasn't opened yet either. That's supposed to open, I think, more in the summer time, but
Right. And the Fun Wheel. Which is becoming what's the new name of it?
Pixar Pal Around.
That's the worst name ever for anything in the history of humankind. Well, okay, so anyway, since you brought it up, let me talk about this whole Pixar Pier nonsense. And I do feel it's nonsense, and I'm really opposed to it. I feel like, first of all, The Incredibles is an incredible franchise, and I feel like you're not doing it justice by just doing an overlay of an existing attraction. It deserves its own original attraction, and it should be located in Tomorrowland. Because it totally fits the vibe of, and it's something Tomorrowland needs desperately, is a new attraction and a do-over, and they're wasting their time and money on this layover of a perfectly fine area that doesn't need to be fixed. At least not for now. There's nothing really wrong with it the way it was. I feel maybe they could add a couple more spinners and make it a little bit more populated with attractions, like a real fairground pier side amusement park would have more than 3 attractions in it, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like they could add more, like a jellyfish attraction, a loop-de-loop, or something, things like that you'd find in a traditional old-school amusement park. That would be fine, and it would be so inexpensive to add those, because those are stored, those are, off-the-shelf attractions. And Disney could theme them up and make them more Victorian and make them fit in. That's what they needed to add. Not all this nonsense where you're theming something that, first of all, Walt Disney would never want just a plain old roller coaster in his park. But the justification for adding this plain old roller coaster into the park was that the theme of the area was a pierside amusement park. So it wasn't adding just a roller coaster for adding a roller coaster's sake, just a plain old wooden roller coaster. It was part of the theme of the area. But now that you're putting a Pixar Incredicoaster layover it, that totally eliminates that whole justification for having that there.
Right.
Because it's no longer, the theme is no longer that of a pierside amusement park. Now it's just like, why don't they just add the Hulk, that ugly green Hulk roller coaster into Disney parks? It's the same thing to me.
Yeah.
It has no theming to it. And so the theme should have just been, it's a roller coaster at a turn-of-the-century amusement park, and you're walking on a pierside amusement park in the roaring 20s. That was the theme. Now you're ruining that by adding this overlay, and it's a cheapy overlay. They're doing it in like 6 months. And they're also changing the whole theming of the queue area, so it's mid-century modern, which totally clashes with everything else in that area. It's just, see, mid-century modern, that's what they need in Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
They need to make Tomorrowland the mid-century googie architecture. That would make Tomorrowland amazing. To kind of make it like a retro future of the 50s and 60s, go back to that, and The Incredibles could be a central element of going in that direction. Because even though I don't believe the movie takes place in the 50s, it just kind of has that mid-century superhero vibe to it.
Yeah.
You know, the music's very mid-century, that, you know, that James Bond kind of music. And it's got just that vibe to it. So, and they also had sort of a people mover type vehicle in the original Incredibles. They could bring the people mover back and have that be part of the whole thing. That's what they needed to do with Incredibles. Now that they put it over in Pixar Pier, that's never going to happen. They're not going to have 2 Incredible attractions.
Right.
They're just going to have the one, you know, throwaway. And it's like they wasted this amazing franchise on this. Because there's so much they could have done with The Incredibles. Incredibles is one of my very favorite Pixar movies. And my heart is broken that they're doing this. Because it's such an injustice to that masterpiece of a film. To me, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
And then they're changing the carousel to all Pixar themed horses and things that you ride on. I feel like they should have updated that carousel, but they should have made it a Victorian carousel to fit in with the theme of the whole Victorian beachside amusement park.
Right.
And get rid of that kind of ugly nautical theme they had going. And I mean, they need to get rid of that parachute thing, which is an eyesore, and put in something like a real parachute jump, like the one they used to have at Knott's Berry Farm with the checkered flag, you know, the checkered parachutes, and have it be more like a traditional parachute drop from an old-time amusement park from the 20s. See, this is why I should have been an Imagineer.
Definitely.
They're cheapening up the whole Pixar, with this Pixar overlay is cheapening that entire area and the entire park.
Yeah.
It's not needed. It wasn't something people were wanting or thought they wanted, or now that we found out about it, it's something that we didn't know we wanted, but now that we know about it, we want it. No.
Right.
It's just like, nobody wants it. Why is it happening? It's not necessary. What are you doing about Tomorrowland?
Right.
Why are you wasting your money on this when you need to fix Tomorrowland?
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about it. And the whole Fun Wheel thing, it's a Pixar theme with a Mickey head on it. What the heck is that about?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you. The money did not need to be spent to do this overlay. They're making it seem like the way that this has been advertised, it's a totally, complete temporary thing, but they're spending so much money to do this. So you're right. I don't feel like it's temporary. I feel like this is going to be definitely a more permanent thing.
They're redoing the entire carousel.
Right.
I mean, that's not a temporary thing. Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a temporary overlay. But I mean, to go back to one of the things you said in the beginning, like you said, Walt wouldn't be happy about having that roller coaster. Walt would never have built that area because he wanted to make his own theme park. He didn't want to copy a seaside pier theme park.
I agree with you entirely. But that was the the justification. That's how they justified it. Yeah, right. But now that that's being completely changed,
right? There's
no justification to have that.
Right.
That's why we have Space Mountain and Thunder Mountain and Matterhorn Mountain. That's why we have these mountains, because they disguise the fact that it's a roller coaster and it's a themed experience.
Right.
Walt Disney did not want roller coasters in his parks.
Right.
He was adamantly opposed to it. He would even flip out if he saw Gadget's Go Coaster.
Right.
He just didn't want that.
Right.
That wasn't what his park was about.
Right. So kind of to piggyback off of that whole thing, like, because I know that DCA does not resemble anything that Walt would have ever built, even from in the beginning. In 2001, when the park opened, that would not have been a park that Walt built. So I definitely do not have such a strong feeling for DCA like I do for Disneyland.
Yeah.
And Disneyland has so much heart and history, and DCA doesn't have that.
Right.
So I don't have as strong feelings about things that they change. I have a little bit more stronger feelings about Bugs Land just because of the nostalgia for me personally. But again, I'm not going to make a petition online to save Bugs Land because I know that's useless. And I've already accepted that it's gone. Yeah. And so it's kind of the same thing for me with Pixar Pier. I know what it was meant to be, and I really liked DCA the way it was originally. I do definitely think that Cars Land and Buena Vista Street are great upgrades. But when it comes to other things, the Marvel Land and Pixar Pier, I just don't even bother getting upset about it because it's not. If it was Disneyland, it would be a completely different story, but it's DCA, so whatever. I mean, the theme of that overall theme of the park is gone. So, I mean, whatever they're going to do to it is whatever.
Well, that was my cat Lily, by the way, everybody. It's really sad that you feel that way, and I feel like a lot of people feel that way. And it's almost like, it sounds like you've given up any hope of that park ever being what you would want it to be. So you just don't care anymore.
I don't want to say I don't care, but I don't see how they can make a cohesive theme out of what they're building there.
They never will.
Right.
It's too late.
Right. So I've given up hope on that.
Yeah, I've given up hope too. It's just that I still am angered about it. Right. I still have passion about it. I've given up hope, but I haven't given up my anger yet. I'm not in that stage of recovery. What do they call it? The stage of
you're not accepting it yet.
Yeah.
You haven't reached acceptance.
It's my stage of acceptance. I'm still I was in my stage of denial for a while until they finally announced, they'll never replace Tower of Terror.
And then
that was my stage of denial. And then when they did, my stage of anger began, and it hasn't gone away yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. Overall, looking at the two parks and the temporary theme that they've given as Pixar Fest, I think it looks fun. And I would like to
instead of DCA, they need to rename it DMM.
For what?
Disney's Mishmash.
Yeah. Oh, brother. Yeah. Well, it's just going to continue to be that way.
Right.
So, but let's talk about our final news topic for the night, which is we're going to end the topics on a high note when we talk about the Together Forever fireworks show at Disneyland.
Right. It's Pixar theme.
It's Pixar themed, and personally, I feel that this fireworks show proves that you can have new IP and make an absolutely amazing fireworks show.
Yeah.
This show tugs at your heartstrings. It gives you all the feels.
Yeah.
You feel Disney in this fireworks show, even though it's all Pixar. And it's just such a great show. What do you think?
To me, I mean, I never differentiated Pixar and Disney. I mean, from the beginning, I always considered them one and the same. Even when they weren't the same company, Disney was heavily involved and they were co-producing these films. So, I mean, to me, Pixar, Disney, what's the difference? It's all Disney to me. But, the difference is that Pixar and Disney worked together from the beginnings.
Right.
Their first feature-length film was a Disney co-production. So Marvel existed, a half century before they teamed up with Disney. So, I mean, more than a half century. So, I mean, to me, they're not one and the same. So that's the difference, because people might call me a hypocrite if I don't explain myself.
Right.
But to me, I have no problem with Pixar being in Disneyland, DCA. It doesn't matter to me. People are like, there's too much Pixar in Disneyland. I said, but Pixar's Disney.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't bother me. Right. And to me, I have more of an emotional bond to Pixar films than I do to the recent Disney films.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have more connection to Toy Story than I do to Frozen.
Right.
I have more of a connection to Up than I do to Moana.
Mm-hmm.
I have more of a connection to WALL-E than I do to, you know, whatever other Disney movie has come out lately. Saving Mr. Banks. I don't know. Anyway, the thing is, so I'm emotionally invested in just the fact that, because I'm comparing it to the show at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom. I think it's called Happily Ever After.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where I just it was like, to me, I flatlined while watching it. My heart did not skip any beats while watching it. I was just not emotionally involved, not emotionally connected. I thought it was beautiful, and the way they lit up the castle with the projections and the fireworks were beautiful. I've seen so many fireworks shows. You forget, I worked at the Magic Kingdom. I saw fireworks every day for months. I mean, it's like, that's not enough to impress me. There has to be some sort of emotional connection to the fireworks. The music usually does that to me. The music that they played in that Happily Ever After was all from the new stuff, and I have no emotional connection to it.
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well do a show with all the DreamWorks films, because that's how I about how I feel about, you know, the Disney recent stuff.
Uh-huh.
It's just I'm not really a fan of it. It's not where my Disney fandom lies.
Right.
But I really am a fan of Pixar. I've always been. That's out of anything Disney does nowadays, Pixar is where I'm impressed, and I feel it's the old Disney storytelling where the story is so rich and the characters are so endearing and wonderful. I mean, I've cried at nearly every Pixar film.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't cry during Frozen.
Right.
I cried during WALL-E. I cried during Up. I cried during Cars. I cried. Yeah. I mean, and it's not my favorite.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just like, I definitely have more of an emotional connection. So when I see Buzz Lightyear fly over Sleeping Beauty Castle, that does something to me. I didn't think it would, because I thought, do I really want to see Buzz Lightyear fly over Sleeping Beauty Castle? But then when I watched the video and I saw it, I was just like, oh my god. And I started to tear up a little bit. And what really caught me off guard was when the Up House
oh my gosh,
flew over the castle. Now that really, in fact, I'm tearing up a little bit just talking about it right now. And one thing I thought it started off a little rocky, because they had a lot of dialogue going on in the beginning. And it seemed like, is this what it's gonna be? All this dialogue? But that kind of phased out a little bit, and it got much more musical as the show went on. And they did still intersperse some dialogue, but it was they held back on it. They kind of used it where it worked. It wasn't all about the dialogue. I feel like the beginning, I felt like I was going to get something different than what it evolved into. So I was a little worried during like the first minute and a half of it. But after that, I kind of got into it, and it didn't bother me anymore. I thought the music was wonderful. I thought the clips they chose were the right ones. And I really, by the end of it, I was an emotional wreck. I was not only moved, I was in, like, I had to get Kleenex. My cat was like, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm watching it I can imagine, I only watched it on YouTube. I can imagine if I saw it in person, I would have been even more. I mean, I'm literally tearing up right now just describing what I saw.
Right. No, it is very emotional. Like, the up part that you're talking about, they show some projections of the movie before the up house actually floats over the castle.
Yeah.
And you hear those first couple of notes of that song, like, da-na-na-na, and you're it's
the
up.
married life.
Yep.
Thing. Yeah.
And they're showing like scenes of his, his scrapbook, and you just know. I mean, who has not watched Up and cried the first 10 minutes of the movie? I mean, I saw it in the theaters twice, and both times I cried.
I put off seeing Up for years because I heard about how it opens.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I cannot watch that. And so I finally gave in. I guess the police aren't too happy about it either. I finally gave in and I watched it only a few years ago. So I came to the party late when it came to Up. But after I saw the first the opening segment, which I did expect, so I was prepared for it, but it still bothered me.
Yeah.
And I did cry. The rest of the movie went in directions I never expected. Like, I didn't understand what the rest... I only really heard about the opening. I never heard anything about where the story takes you. And that big dodo bird... Mm-hmm. What's his name? Kevin. And that character was so amazing. I love that character. That was one thing. I was so thrilled to see him in that parade at Disneyland, because I love that bird. Anyway, and just the whole thing with it was like an action it was almost like an Indiana Jones movie. It was so crazy. Like, it was like a edge of your seat action adventure.
Yeah, it is.
And so the other thing is WALL-E I put off seeing for years because I had a sense of it being one thing and it turned out to be another, and I was afraid that I was going to have my heartstrings pulled out because I thought that one of them, probably WALL-E, dies in the movie. And at one point you think he does, but then it ends up with a happy ending. So I didn't know that it would turn into a happy ending, and I was freaking out about watching that because I didn't want to see another love story where somebody dies.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, West Side Story, Romeo and Juliet, I just can't handle it.
Right.
I'm not good with those films. So I finally did watch it, and I was so sad. I was sad that I hadn't seen it sooner because I fell in love with that movie. It's such an amazing movie.
It is. Yeah.
I mean,
that scene in the
is
fireworks
incredible.
Show is amazing too. The WALL-E scene.
Yeah. What's the name of that elephant in Inside Out?
It's Bing Bong.
Bing Bong. See, that I couldn't deal with.
Oh my gosh.
That was
I
too
love
much.
Bing Bong.
I couldn't handle that. And I'm getting upset right now just thinking about it. So my point is, yes, I have an emotional connection to Pixar.
Right.
So I was kind of like, is this the right place for this? Does it really belong in the Magic Kingdom? And the answer is yes. It does work. It's perfect. It's wonderful. It's okay to have something different for a short period of time in Disneyland, as long as it's, as long as it has the right, like, it doesn't always have to be Tinkerbell.
Right.
It doesn't always have to be, When You Wish Upon a Star. Mm-hmm. If you have other things that work, then it's okay if you use those other things temporarily.
Right.
We have to see Tinkerbell again sometime.
Definitely, yes.
But anyway, that's my final takeaway from the new fireworks. So you're probably all surprised to hear me say all that. I actually give it 2 thumbs up.
This is how you do something like this right, is the way that Disneyland has done it.
Yes.
I mean, I watched a couple of videos. So I watched the castle with the projections, but not only do they project on the castle, they also project on the Main Street buildings.
Yes.
And I didn't realize this until I watched the video, but during the Coco part, they actually have, like, I guess, some of the characters from the Coco movie, like the skeletal family members.
Yeah.
From the I forget what it's called, but where they are dead, living in the dead area. They are inflating on top of the building during that part.
Yeah.
So you can't see it if you just look at the castle. So you got to watch the Main Street part too. But that just makes it so much more amazing that they do this double projection. So there's so many people that can enjoy this fireworks show.
I think they also have the water screens up in the Rivers of America, like the ones they use for Fantasmic, and they have it there. And they also, I think, have it on the
Small World.
I might be wrong about that, but I do
don't
know
for about that either.
I do know for sure they're doing it on the water screen for the Rivers of America, so you can watch that there too.
Yeah, I mean, this is just such a great fireworks show, and I have seen so many fireworks shows at Disneyland where I am literally like holding back tears. I mean, even the Christmas fireworks show where it was snowing at the end. Yeah. I've seen that. I mean, that is just such an emotional experience. I haven't seen that in
person, but I have a feeling if I did, I would probably lose it.
Yeah. I mean, I have not seen better fireworks shows than at Disneyland. I mean, I don't know what it is and why Disneyland is different than Disney World, but Disneyland does it right. I mean, the 50th anniversary fireworks show is my all-time favorite fireworks show. Yeah. And that's before projection.
I never saw Wishes, but from what I hear, that was an amazing fireworks show that Walt Disney World had. I missed it by a year, I think.
I never saw it either. So.
Yeah, but from what I hear, that was one of those that probably would have brought me to tears, especially because Jiminy Cricket was the MC and all that stuff, so it probably would have impacted me.
Right.
But, I feel like if you're gonna do something, I'm gonna say a swear word, cover up your little kids' ears. Don't half-ass it.
Yeah.
Do it all the way.
Right.
Because, I mean, that's what Disney does. That's what's expected. That's what they're known for. None of this overlay nonsense. Build new stuff and build it right the first time and do it right, and don't cut costs. You make the investment, the upfront investment, and you put the money into it. Over time, it may take a long time, but over time, you will reap the rewards. And there are so many examples of that in the history of the Disney Company that it's so surprising to me when Disney doesn't follow that lesson.
Right.
And look at Fantasia. That was a huge financial problem for Disney when it came out. It tanked, and they put so much money into that. But now, 65, 70 years later, the amount of money that film has generated you can't even count it. And it's created so many things that the Disney Company has benefited from, like just iconic things that Disney is known for.
Right.
Like Sorcerer Mickey, the dancing hippos, the Chernabog, just all these images people associate with Disney that, they lost money when it came out, but in the 70 years since then, they have made millions and millions of dollars from that investment, that initial investment, that they're still benefiting from it to this day, and they don't have to lift a finger to do anything because they put their heart and soul into that movie in 1940. Disney is still cashing in on it to this day because Walt Disney said quality will out, and Disney needs to remember that.
Definitely.
If you put quality into something up front, it may hit you in the gut for now, but 10, 20, 30 years down the road, you're going to be glad that you made that investment. And that Disney's been living off that for decades, and it's really sad that in more current years, it's all about cost cutting, price hikes, overcharging, cutting little things here and there. Like, I don't know. It's just, I've said all I can say.
Well, on that note, I planned a little thing at the end that I wanted to do on this news episode here.
Oh, yes, I forgot about this.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Okay.
So I thought it would be fun to do some trivia. So I have prepared 10 trivia questions for Chris based on our theme today, which is theme parks.
Right. And she knows that she had to pick hard questions for me.
Yes, I had to pick hard questions for Chris because I was going through my Disney trivia books and reading some of the questions, and I'm like, I know the answer to this, so he's going to know it, of course.
Yeah.
So I picked some hard ones, and
we'll see.
Let's see what you end up scoring, but I'm going to give you this one caveat, is pretty much all the questions are 2000 and before. So
that might be a bad thing because
nothing,
I know more about
after 2000.
I know more about 2000 and before than I do. You should have tried to find things later because then you would have stumped me.
We'll see.
All right.
Okay, because I did pick some hard ones here. I hope they're not too hard. All right. So also it's all theme parks, not just one.
Okay.
Okay, so the first question here. What actor provided the narration for the nighttime spectacular show Sorcery in the Sky at Disney MGM Studios?
Oh my God.
You think this is hard?
Yes, that's a hard one. Let's think. I can kind of hear his voice because I did see it years ago. So I can kind of hear his voice. I want to say, I think it was an English sounding type voice. Was it that guy from, I can't remember. Was it Patrick Stewart?
Is that your answer?
I guess it's not from the sound of your voice.
No, I want to know your final answer.
That's the only thing I can think of.
That is incorrect. The answer is Vincent Price.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I don't remember hearing him.
So I could see how you would think it was English, because he kind of has a slight, not an English accent, but definitely an accent. Patrick
Stewart could sound kind of like Vincent Price a little bit.
Yes. I love Vincent Price. All right. So the next one.
The thriller.
Yes. At Disneyland, what are the words to Mr. Toad's Creed as featured at the entrance to Mr. Toad's Wild Ride?
Oh, I kind of know that. It's like Toady Acceleratio Siempre or something like that. I can see it. I know what you're talking about. It's like Toady Accelerato. It's Latin for Toad drives fast or something like that. Super fast Toad, extremely fast Toad. Acceleratio Serpatico. I don't know.
You are really close. I should probably just give this one to you. So here's the answer. The creed reads, Toady Acceleratio Semper Absurda.
Oh.
Which means speeding with Toad is always absurd.
Yes. I remember now. Yeah. I knew what it was. I mean, I knew what you were talking about.
Right,
I just couldn't remember the words. I don't speak Latin, for those who don't know.
I don't know who does, but, I thought you might be able to get that one. So I'll give that one to you.
No, you don't have to.
Well, I mean, you got a couple of Latin words. I wouldn't have gotten it.
Well, I remember thinking, I think I wrote something about it once.
Mm-hmm.
I might have something on my website that has it quoted.
Yeah, you probably do.
So that's why I remember it.
All right, so the next question. Who conducted the 1,076-piece band on opening day of the Magic Kingdom?
The Boston Pops. Arthur Fiedler and the Boston Pops.
Is that your answer?
Well, Arthur Fiedler conducted it, so I'll just say Arthur Fiedler. Yes, final answer.
That is incorrect.
What?
It was Meredith Willson, who was the band leader for the band that marched up Main Street playing his song, 76 Trombones.
I thought you meant in front of the castle. They had a big concert in front of Cinderella Castle, and Arthur Fiedler conducted that. So that I wasn't thinking of the parade. I was thinking of the...
Did you know that answer?
I did know that.
You did? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I knew that. And he also did kind of the same thing at Disneyland 59. Mm-hmm. Even though it was Tommy Walker, the leader of the Disneyland band, they had like a huge band of trombones come down Main Street playing 76 trombones. And Meredith Willson, because Meredith Willson wrote that song.
Right.
He wrote the score to The Music Man. And he was in the audience next to Richard Nixon and Walt Disney. And when they were coming down the street playing his song, he was asked to go out on a podium in the middle of the street and stand there, and they gave him a baton and he conducted them for a few minutes.
Oh, okay. Did he stand there or did they walk?
No, they stopped in place. They were all lined down the street, but they stopped marching and they kept playing and he conducted them. Mm-hmm. If you watch the Disneyland 59 TV special, you can see it. It's included in it. I know that's all over YouTube. You can watch it there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so this was kind of they were welcoming him back to kind of do the same thing for Walt Disney World when that opened.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yep.
So the next question, remember, nothing after 2000. Because I cannot confirm if this answer is true after 2000. But
okay.
For the next question.
So we're not just things before. We're looking at it as it is the year 2000.
No, not is. I mean 2000 or before.
No, what I'm saying is we're pretending it's the year 2000 because everything that happened after 2000 we can't take into consideration.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. See, I'm glad you clarified.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So the next question.
In the year 2000.
Oh, that was such a funny skit. All right. What is the fastest Disney attraction featured in any theme park?
The monorail. Final answer.
Incorrect.
What? I used to see this little tag on the Disney Channel all the time. And they asked everybody in Walt Disney World, what's the fastest thing in Walt Disney World? And everyone was like, they interviewed people in the parks. And they're like, definitely Space Mountain. Yeah, Space Mountain. No, I think it's those little water sprite boats. And then one person said, I think it's the Autopia cars. Or the Grand Prix cars, because it's Disney World. And everyone had the wrong answer at the end. He said, everybody was wrong. The correct answer is the monorail.
Did they say how fast it went?
Like, I don't know, like 40 miles an hour or something. Not that fast.
There's an attraction that goes faster than that. And it is Test Track.
Oh.
Which reaches the speeds of 65 miles per hour.
Well, I was jaded by that Disney Channel thing, because that came out before there was Test Track. And that was kind of embedded in my mind.
Yeah. You probably watched that on the Disney Channel, didn't you?
Yeah, they showed it there, like, all the time.
Right.
It was like a 5-minute little thing they would show if, you know, how I mentioned in our last show, how if an episode or if, like, a movie ended, but they needed to fill in time so the next thing could start on the half hour.
Yeah.
That was one of those little things they would play. They did a few different ones. They do little interviews in Disneyland. One of them was they went around asking people if they could name the 7 dwarfs.
Yeah.
They did different things like that.
Yeah, that sounds like something they would play on Disney Channel.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the 5th question here.
Oh, I'm not doing very well.
I told you I made them hard.
I haven't gotten any right. You want to count the second one, but I don't think I got that one.
Okay. So, elements of which Magic Kingdom attraction were discovered in the Yucatan?
Balloons. Oh, attraction, not
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Elements of what attraction? Oh, you mean that they discovered them and then brought them to Disneyland?
Correct.
Or they somehow, like, migrated to the Yucatan?
No. They found them there and then brought them to the Magic Kingdom.
I'm going to say Big Thunder Mountain.
That's very close. But it was actually the 4 locomotives that make up the Walt Disney World Railroad.
Oh, okay.
They found them in the Yucatan. They were being used to haul freight. And they brought them to Florida. They cleaned them up in Tampa. And then they became the Disney World Railroad.
Okay.
Did you know that?
I knew that they were restored, but I didn't remember where they came from.
Okay. All right. So, question 6. What are the names of the 3 inner halls that determine the fate of each guest after they leave the Great Chamber of Destiny in the Indiana Jones adventure at Disneyland?
Okay, I might know this. I
Okay.
have to think about it though. So there's the Hall of Earthly Riches, right? Tell me if I'm right as I go through.
Close. It's not the complete name, but it's close.
Oh. Well, okay, I'll just I'm not gonna, do I have to give the exact name or
No, I'll give you.
Can I name what each one does? There's one that is for wealth, one that's for fame, and one that's for beauty. Or so you don't age / beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Close.
See, I don't even get it right when you're like allowing me exceptions. I don't have to name it exactly.
Okay, so you said Hall of Earthly Riches. It's Chamber of Earthly Riches.
Oh.
The second one is Fountain of Eternal Youth. So that was your age one. The last one is the Observatory of the Future.
Oh, see, that was completely wrong. But I remember it now.
I'm surprised you knew this. When I saw this question, I was like, there's no way he's going to know this.
Yeah, well, I've been on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on that many times, but I don't remember
and
the
I've
names.
listened to, well, I listened to the audio too a lot.
Yeah. So they
edited
they
it
say
and
it in the audio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they first of all, they say it in the pre-show on the film you watch as you're in line with Sala.
Mm-hmm.
He mentions the 3 chambers and not to look in the eyes of the idol. And then they say it when you get into the attraction, if you're in that particular chamber, they say if you're in that chamber, they say it.
Mm-hmm.
And then and I've ridden it so many times that I've been in all 3 chambers.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. All right. So question 7. The term audio animatronics was used first in association with which attraction?
Okay. People are gonna think that it's the Tiki Room, but I believe the correct answer is Nature's Wonderland Railroad.
You are correct. It was first associated with Nature's Wonderland attraction in 1960.
Yes.
So you got one.
Wow. The Disney expert here gets one right.
I made them hard. Okay. I think this one's pretty hard, but we'll see if you get
What
this
number
next one.
are we on?
8. This is question 8 right here.
Okay.
Which actress plays research scientist Dr. Lair in Body Wars?
Oh, see, I want to say Felicia Rashad because I'm picturing her, but I think I'm being jaded by the fact I just recently saw the dinosaur ride, and they're all wearing lab coats and that too. So I'm just like picturing Felicia
Right,
Rashad.
and she's in that one.
Anything
yeah.
lab coat related is Felicia Rashad.
Right.
Oh God! I think I rode that one time ever.
Oh,
and
really? You've only rid rode Body Wars?
Maybe
once?
twice, maybe 2 times, because it made me nauseous.
Oh.
Even though I could go on Star Tours a million times, something about Body Wars made me nauseous. Because of the blood and the body parts, and it kind of swayed you more back and forth. It felt more like you were moving around in one place, so it felt more, I don't know, just kind of felt like it felt like you were on a big rocking boat. So it kind of made you seasick.
I mean, because
you were stationary.
Never ridden it,
you were kind of going through the body, so you kind of, at some points you were stationary and you just kind of swaying back and forth, looking at the area of the body you're in at that moment.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't constant movement forward like in Star Tours. It was more like start and stop and hover, and so yeah. Anyway, the actress who played, I'm just gonna bet Midler. I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Was Elizabeth Shue. So
I don't even remember who she is.
She's best known for the movie Adventures in Babysitting. These are Disney films here, from 1987, Cocktail from 1988, and The Marrying Man 1991.
I've seen Adventures in Babysitting once, I think, when it came out.
Yeah, she's the babysitter.
Yeah, she's blonde. The blonde lady.
Yep.
I haven't seen the other 2 movies ever. And Adventures in Babysitting, what year did that come out?
87.
That was the last time I saw it.
Okay.
So I don't
That's one of my favorite movies from the 80s.
Well, it's not that I wouldn't enjoy seeing it again. I remember enjoying it quite a lot. It had John Candy in it, right? Or am I confusing it with something else?
No, you're confusing it. He's not in that one. No.
Oh, okay.
But,
well, I might not have seen Adventures in Babysitting then. Maybe I saw something with John Candy and I'm thinking it was Adventures in Babysitting.
Are you thinking about Uncle Buck with John Candy?
Maybe.
Where he babysits like his niece and nephew while the parents have to leave?
Maybe. Was there a cabin in the woods involved or
that's
something?
The Great Outdoors with John Candy.
See, these are I have like clashing memories going here. We're talking, this was 30 years ago. Yeah. I can't remember. And I'm going senile as it is.
All right.
You want me to think back 30 years ago?
We have 2 more.
All right.
Okay, number 9. What is the name of the construction company found in Mickey's Toontown at Disneyland?
Acme.
Is that your final answer?
That's all I can think of.
Okay, well, that's not correct.
Oh.
It's called the Chinny Chin Chin Construction Company.
Oh, God. You remember that building that says Planning Commission and they ran out of space on the end of commission, so they had to squeeze the letters together?
Yes.
I just thought that was so funny.
Yes. I love Toontown. Those little details.
That's why I don't want to see Toontown ever leave.
Right.
Because I just love all that stuff. And I have the nostalgia for Roger Rabbit.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because that was part of my childhood.
Yes, definitely. All right, so you ready for your last question?
Yes.
Okay, number 10. Which Walt Disney World resort opened 24 years after the original drawings for the resort were created?
Let's see. That would take us to, if it was original drawings that were done before Disney World opened, it could be anywhere from the mid-60s up to the 70s, which would bring us to 75, 85, like around 1990. I don't think they planned on the Grand Floridian before Eisner came around. I don't think that was an idea they even had until then. They replaced it with they were gonna have like a Persian themed hotel there, and instead they put in I'm giving you like all the information except the answer to your question.
No, but you're talking it out, so that's okay.
Alright. Trying to think of all the resorts there are and what would possibly, you've got the the Wilderness Lodge. We've got, which is definitely one I'm thinking that it might be. But I haven't made my final decision yet. So Wilderness Lodge is a contender. I don't think Caribbean or the All-Stars were dreamed of, especially the All-Stars. I don't think they were planning those 25 years in advance. We've got to have a giant Mickey phone.
Right.
Let's see. What else do they have? They have the boardwalk and the beach and... I'm just gonna say Wilderness Lodge. I can't think of anything else.
You went with your gut? You're correct.
Oh.
It was inspired by the national park lodges of the Northwest, such as those found in Yosemite and Yellowstone.
Yeah, because I can see them, like, thinking of that in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can imagine that would be a theme that would have been trending in the 70s, where I can't imagine them thinking of, like, you know, the beach resort in the 70s. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they were thinking of those type of things. So what year did that open? Do we know?
I thought Wilderness Lodge opened when Magic Kingdom opened.
No, because that opened in the 90s, years later. It was Fort Wilderness that opened.
Oh, yes. Okay.
That's the campground.
I'm getting my wildernesses mixed up.
Yeah, Wilderness Lodge is like a relative latecomer. Like, I think it opened in the 90s sometime. So I'm thinking they might have planned it when they were planning the actual Disney. It was supposed to be one of those... Because there were several resorts they were planning on adding shortly after the Magic Kingdom opened. Mm-hmm. Like I said, that Persian one was supposed to be located where eventually they built the Grand Floridian. But there was also supposed to be one further down, closer, like on the other side. Like the Polynesian is on the west side of the Ticket and Transportation Center. There was also supposed to be one on the east side of the Ticket and Transportation Center. Mm-hmm. And they ended up not being able to use that land because there was a problem with, like, it had too many, like sinkhole issues. Mm-hmm. So they were never able to build a hotel there. That's why they had to build the Wilderness Lodge, like, not part of the monorail circle. They had to kind of build it further away because they couldn't build it there. That was land that wouldn't be able to stabilize a big structure like that.
Right.
So, there was another themed hotel that they were going to build. I forget what the theme was, but I didn't remember that the Wilderness Lodge was one of those ideas they had, but it might have been. Mm-hmm. So there was the Persian one, another sort of European theme or something kind of exotic themed. Oh, I think it might have been a Grecian, like a Greek theme. Huh. Like a Roman, Greek themed hotel. That was the one that was supposed to be on the other side of the Ticket and Transportation Center. And then they may have planned on building the big Wilderness Lodge as part of Fort Wilderness originally.
Right.
And it kind of is. It's kind of close to Fort Wilderness, really. So.
Right. Yeah.
So.
All right, so there's your questions. What did you think? Too hard?
Well, I think the questions were hard, but then I made up for it by providing all sorts of trivia and fun facts about things I did know the answers to that you didn't ask me.
I knew you would do that too, so that's fine. It's good for our listeners.
Right.
Alrighty. Well, that's all we have today. We've talked a lot, and we've only talked about Disneyland.
Right. So the next time we do another mini episode, we'll talk about Walt Disney World and all the latest news that's going on there, like how the dragon in the parade caught fire today. We're recording this on, what's today, the 11th of May?
Yes.
So we'll talk about the big dragon catching fire and other fun things.
Yes. A lot of changes going on over there in Florida.
Yeah, and they're not all dragon involved.
Right.
But just nobody got hurt, so we're able
Right.
to joke about it.
Right.
Nobody was injured during the dragon fire.
Right.
That sounds like a good video game title.
Dragonfire?
Dragonfire.
Yeah.
It's probably already taken. Sounds like something people might have already come up with. Anyway, that's our, what is this, our 7th mini
Eighth.
episode? 8th. Oh, wow. And Ruth, where can everybody find
you're
you
right.
on the web?
It's 7. I think it's...
Ah,
Now we're going to debate what number it is.
it's our 7th and or 8th
Right.
episode of... And so, Ruth, where can everybody find you on the worldwide webisodes?
Well, I won't give you the big spiel here. I'll just tell you, you guys can find me on Facebook. I'm Ruthie Brown.
You can find me on Facebook too. I'm Chris Linden, Lyndon, as in Lyndon Johnson, and on Twitter, I'm Disney Chris 7 at Disney Chris 73. Thanks for the trivia, Ruthie. Thanks for making me sound like a stupid person in front of our audience. No, I'm just
I had to
kidding.
stump you, or else it would be too easy.
Thanks a lot.
Well, you're always
So?
going to remember the construction company at Mickey's Toontown now.
I've already forgotten, Ruth. I have such a short-term memory. You don't even know. Short-term
boy.
memory loss.
Alrighty.
Well, we'll see you real soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I have listened to the cuckoo his cuckoo, and I've heard the rooster cock-a-doodle-doo.